Greetings, Professor Falcon. This is We Told You So. Episode 104. Maybe you would prefer a nice game of chess?
Again, much like Skynet, that's a situation I'd probably rather have than the one we're in now. Of course, we're probably headed that way. The Senate passed a Republican border security bill without Trump's tax cuts. They're currently more gung-ho on deporting millions of people. Trump's preference was for a version that would also include trillions of dollars in tax cuts for billionaires. Instead, it focuses on spending more money on defense, Trump's immigration and deportation policies, and encouraging more development of fossil fuels. Welcome back to the 1950s. Your table is ready. And once again, for people claiming that it's the Democrats allowing this to happen, it was every single Republican who voted for it, except Rand Paul, who is randomly becoming the voice of reason. Similarly, in our further move to become the Fourth Reich, Kash Patel was confirmed to lead the FBI. You know, the guy who is openly a QAnon conspiracy theorist and who wants to turn it into the Gestapo and go after Trump's enemies. And again, for the people complaining that the Democrats are somehow letting this happen, every single Democrat in the Senate voted against him, including two Republicans, Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski, who have actually been voting against numerous Trump appointees. So once again, just like Trump's win, these people are barely squeaking it out. And it's only because the fascist Republicans control all of Congress. While Ukraine has been completely cut out of the peace talks between the United States and Russia over Ukraine's fate, Europe has decided to pick up the slack, and they said that they would defend Ukraine. And the Kremlin says any plan to send European troops into Ukraine would be unacceptable. Just like he used to threaten us when Biden was in office, Schmutin is now threatening the rest of Europe, saying, don't send your troops to Ukraine. However, this is the point at which he can be stopped. And this is actually when he's at his weakest and he's lashing out, because his economy is a shambles, his people are miserable, and he's been losing this war the entire time. I've said that internet memes are once again becoming really spectacular. Here's just a 2-second break to look at this one, because it's incredibly accurate. The Trump administration has ordered NASA to purge all mentions of women in leadership on its websites. So if you look up women in NASA and you click on any of their websites, you actually get a 404 error because they removed the page. In order to restrict and, let's say, censor certain types of content, specifically anything they consider to be DEI, NASA employees were required to drop everything and to remove a list of words from public-facing websites, including Indigenous people and anything about women. This is one of those times when I always think of the MAGA women who are still making videos on TikTok praising the Trump administration. I mean, they're automatically a pick-me, thinking that they're somehow going to get a seat at that table. No, they're going to be the waitstaff, barefoot and pregnant. And apparently they either completely don't see that, or they somehow don't care. And yet, like 50% of white women in this country just declared that they didn't want any rights. And as Brooke Rollins was confirmed as Trump's Secretary of Agriculture, another person who is highly inept and unqualified and has a conflict of interest in this area, shockingly recently the USDA accidentally fired officials working on bird flu, and now they're trying to rehire them back. In the Trump history of cluelessly handling potential pandemics, this just shows you exactly what's going to happen when the newest pandemic shows up. Because just to remind you, COVID had a death rate of anywhere between 2 and 5%. Bird flu, it's like 30%. And while bird flu is already here, imagine what happens when it goes nationwide and all the MAGA decide, well, we're not going to do anything about it again. They're just going to start dropping like flies. I already commented in a previous video about how Trump declared himself to be a king on official White House social media. But whoever made this ridiculous picture in fealty to the dear Fuhrer apparently forgot about what happens to most people who sit on the Iron Throne. But of course this happens as he continues to sign blatantly unconstitutional executive orders, like the one he says gives him complete control over independent agencies like the FEC and the FCC, but also that executive order he signed where he said that only he and the AG can interpret US law, which is actually the job of the judicial branch. It's because the courts are saying he can't do his unconstitutional bullshit. They're calling him out. And his illegal executive order comes just weeks after J.D. Vance said Trump can freely ignore judges. And finally, a judge recently ruled that Trump can continue his mass firings despite the disruption and chaos that it's causing. He said that even though Trump's onslaught of executive actions are causing disruption and chaos in society, he personally likely lacks the power to decide whether the firing of tens of thousands of government employees is lawful. He said that he, as a judge, does not have the power to declare that that is illegal. I don't get that. So as these fascist assholes continue to play games with us, and pretend that they are not in the pocket of Russia, as well as the Heritage Foundation. They are continuing to hit us every single day with a blitzkrieg of bullshit, specifically designed to make us demoralized, make us feel hopeless, and make us feel like there's nothing we can do. In other words, to make us comply in advance. Remember, we all know exactly where they stand. The most important thing to remember with this fascist regime is not to just roll over and take it. The only power they have is what we allow them to have. They think that they own everything and they can do whatever they want. But there are many more of us than there are of them. So we have to remember that they don't dictate the rules.
Strange game. The only winning move is not to play.